berangkat salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Guys are so thick. This needs to be connected. I'm not remembering it. Where is this now? Incredibly thick. This you need to get one of these things ready. What a life.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبدو بالكسر القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العالمون ولا يعد حقه المشتغلون. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا حبيب الله العالمين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد. وصلى الله على من هو عند الرسول أخي وابن عمي ووسيم ووارثي وموضع سري أبو الحسنين مولى القولين إمام الثقلين يعصوم الدين رئيس الموحدين قائد الغر المحجلين السيد المتقين أمير المؤمنين أسد الله الغالب غالب على كل غالب مظهر العجائب علي بن أبي طالب. وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله ولا القوم الظالمين للآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة يا باب نجاة الأمة يا عبرة لكل مؤمن ومؤمنات يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. فيا ليتني كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. أما بعد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هذا عطاؤنا فامسك بغير حساب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات On the 2nd of Muharram, 61 AH, 680 after Hijrah, Imam al-Hussein reaches the land of Karbala. And when he reaches, he says and begins one sermon. And the sermon begins like this. He looks at the people and says, something has happened. Observe, something is happening around us. The world is changing. It is becoming into an unfavorable state and is letting go of all of its virtue. All that remains from this place is like the last drop in the bottom of a container. It is like a stony farmland. And then he says those crucial words. Have you noticed that which is good is no longer being practiced, and that which is evil is no longer being criticized? Imam goes on, but these words, I would like you to ponder on. Have you noticed that which is good is no longer being practiced, and that which is evil, which is qabih, is not being renounced or criticized? Although this was said 1400 years ago, I think all of you understand this feeling that all around me, what should be good and honorable and praiseworthy is given no credit in this world anymore. This world has changed now. And that which is bad and evil and genuinely should be criticized, not only is not criticized, but it's celebrated. People are celebrated and given fame and virtue for the very things they should be ashamed of. In terms of the good no longer being practiced, think about this in the modern world right now. Not then, but now. The beauty of Islam, the beauty of this religion, of its faith, is treated by others as terrorism. Okay. The history which we have, age-old culture, civilizations, different communities throughout various cultures are all being ignored to characterize us as one thing. Our books which contain self-referential beauty, where one ayah of the Quran responds to another ayah reveals 20 years after. The beauty of this book is being misquoted. The people of this religion, who are the most charitable and the most kind, and are observed and required by God to be the most philanthropic, are called and labeled as being refugees, or being migrants, or being others, or being second or third class citizens. And on the other hand, on the flip side, those who lie with such professionalism become the most famous and in authority and power. Those who commit the most shameful acts get the most fame. Those who are going to the lowest possible level of humanity are treated like the influences of society. This whole thing is flipped on its head. Go back to Abu Abdullah. He says the world has changed around us. That which is good is no longer being practiced. And that which is truly and genuinely evil, no one speaks against. And what that means then is that true Islam, and not just Islam, living a good life, an honest life becomes harder and harder in the world we live in. Because the whole system is structured around rewarding evil and punishing good. So how hard it becomes to actually be a good Muslim in this world. What does Imam say? It's like the last drop which is left in a container. That's what I see in front of me, he says. Goodness, this word, I see it like the final drop in a container. It's become completely empty. And all that's left to drink is minuscule. I see goodness like this in the world. Or it's like a stony farmland. A land which has no good coming from that land, no produce, no natural beauty, just misery day by day. This is the misery of the world seen by Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. In that world, which looks like it is a place of genuine depression and despair, there is still hope. For Hussein is still standing and speaking and inviting towards the truth. Despite the fact that everything has turned on its head, good being treated like evil, evil treated like good, despite all of that, there is still hope for us in our own life to overcome our challenges. Why? Does the Prophet not say, "Inni tarikum fikum thaqalayn"? I leave behind for you two things. And these two things will remain with you until the end. Meaning, no matter what happens in life, no matter how many cyclical changes of good and evil happen, these two things will remain until the end. And they will come together to meet me at the pool of Kawthar. Kitab Allahi wa itrati. The book of God and this family. Recently I saw one of the most prominent online Sunni polemicists, even he admits, even in Sunni books, the strongest narration is Kitab Allahi wa Ahlul Bayt, not wa Sunnah. I remember these things. No matter what you go through in life, they'll be there to help you. This issue we have today, where good is being punished, and even rewarded, is the very same thing. Kitabullah wa itrat Ahl Bayt can help us. We have a narration, so Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, where the Imam says, you will never gain ilmun sahih, true knowledge, good knowledge, fil mashriq or fil maghrib, whether you are in the east or the west, except illa bi ma'na Ahl al-Bayt, with us Ahl al-Bayt. Why is he saying in the east or the west? He could have said, you will never gain true ilm unless you follow us. But no, fil mashriq or fil maghrib, because he knew there would be some people who would migrate and go to the west, where there were none at the time when he said this. And wherever you look, even if you were in hardship, the place for ilmun sahih, true knowledge, true ilm, is only with the awlad of Zahra alayhi salam. This family will help you no matter what happens in the world. And in that family, the one who will save you in these 10 days is Abedi Hussein alayhi salam. So no matter how hard that life looks, evil is being rewarded, goodness is being ignored, it doesn't matter. Hussein is still Safinatul Najat. Even then, what does that mean? The ship of salvation. In a world where, as if you're a parent especially, it feels like you are losing control of how you can raise your children. Every day there are new forces in school, in the media, online, social media, society. I can't control and give my child true ilm anymore. Don't worry, even if it feels like you are just about getting there, like you are paddling in an ocean which you are barely swimming in, for you, Hussein is the ship of salvation. And he can help you in how to raise your child like a Husseini. Someone comes to Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, and says, what do you mean Hussein is the same? Aren't you all Safinatul Najat, all of your ships of salvation, every single one of you? He says, yes, all of us are ships of salvation. But Hussein of us is the largest and the fastest ship. So go hold on to the ship of Abu Abdullah to reach your destination. So this word we're listening to, evil and good have been flipped. Hussein can help us. How? We start with Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We are told that when you don't know what to do, when you're confused, when you're facing hayra or dhalala or wahm, and you don't know what the way forward is, go back to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And God says in this book, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of remembrance if you don't know. If you don't know about something, seek out Ahl al-Dhikr. Someone, Zurara the companion, goes to the Imam and says, Ya Imam, who are Ahl al-Dhikr? Bearing in mind the Quran is filled with phrases like Ahl al-Dhikr, or Ulil al-Albab, or Rasikhuna fil Ilm, or Al-Alam, and these phrases. Who are the people of knowledge that when you don't know, you go to them? And the Imam says, we, the Ahl al-Bayt, are Ahl al-Dhikr in the Quran. When you don't know something, you come to us. So then Zurara says, yeah, but what about when we ask you a question and you answer something different, or you don't even answer what we are asking of you, or you choose to answer less than what we need from you? The Imam says, have you not read the Quran? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hada a'ta'una. This is from us to give. We give this what we do. Famrun aw mamsuk. Either we give or we don't give. Bighayri hisab. We don't give accounting to the one we give to. Ghayri hisab. We give how much we give. To whom we give how much we give. Whether we give or we don't give, that's on us, but you have to still ask us for where Ahl al-Dhikr. One day, bear in mind, when we go to Ahl al-Bayt, they will help us in this time. That's what I'm trying to prove towards you. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, the famous phrase, he says something, he looks towards me and says, look at my chest. He says, Hahuna ilmun jama'a. Ilm is in my chest gathered to the brim. Jama'a in Arabic is when you know you have a dam which collects water. When the water can no longer bear one more drop, it's called jama'a. It can't bear anymore, that dam is full. Ali says, ilm is to my chest like water in that dam. It's filled to the brim. Not more drop of ilm can come into my chest. Ha, huna ilmun jama'a. In the khutbah Shaqiyah, when he's speaking about the first and the second and the third of the khulafa, and he's saying, how can you compare me to them? and the birds cannot come and reach me. I give to whom we give, بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. That's the most important phrase. You don't need to ask how much we give. One day, Kumail bin Ziyad is on a horse with about Imam, they're riding the horse. Kumail says, Ya Ali, what is the truth? What is haqiqat? Imam Ali says, Ya Kumail, what is your nisbah with haqq? What's your relation to truth? Kumail says, I am asking you because I have heard that you are the one person, Ya Ali, that when someone goes to you, you never turn them away. For example, on the battlefield, Ali is fighting, someone comes towards him and says, are you Ali Nabi Talib? Yes, he's fighting against him. He says, I heard that you never refuse a single beggar. So this truth is, in that case, give me your sword. Ali, in the middle of the battlefield, gives him Zulfiqar, gives him his sword. The man says, well, now I have your sword. I can kill you if I wish, no one can stop me. Ali replies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept 2 angels on guarding my shoulders. And there is one time of my death. When the time of my death comes, no one can save me. But until the time of my death comes, no sword can strike me. The man gives the sword back and follows Ali into battlefield. We give بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. This is Ahl al-Bayt. No matter what issue you're going through, they will always give. And when they give, make you happy with what they give. Who are they? Ahl al-Dhikr. Does the Quran not say, Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'inna al-qulub? Does the Quran not say this? That only with the dhikr of Allah will your heart be tranquil. I assure all of you, no matter where you go, your qalb does never get as tranquil as sitting in the Majlis of Hussein alayhi salam. You cannot go anywhere for the sukoon you get in majalis, like this majalis right here. Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'inna al-qulub. Ali ibn Ibrahim narrates that Ahl al-Bayt are that's a dhikr which give your qalb salm, peace in your heart. They are that peace. And so, going back to our original point, when the world is changing around us, are you guys with me inshallah? Yes. When the world is changing, and good is becoming evil becoming good, and we don't know how to raise our children or navigate this changed world, we always go back to Ahl al-Bayt. They are Ahl al-Dhikr. And as the world changes more and more for Abu Abdullah and for us, we go back to Hussein ibn Ali to understand how do I deal with a changing world. Let's go back to the most important line of the sentence that I said on the khutbah. Abu Abdullah says, the world is changing around us. He says this when? 1400 years ago. The world is changing. And we said, you know what, I feel the same way now. The world is changing now as well. Especially in how we can't find haqq anymore and batil is everywhere. Just like Abu Abdullah described. What do you mean by the world is changing? Well, the world we are in now has gone through many phases. And right now it's going in the process of going through a brand new phase. And because we don't know what that phase is, we are in trouble. What do I mean? Originally, this world was in a phase known as the phase of early or pre-modern society, which they call a society in which all of insan were basically hunter-gatherers. What does that mean? Tribes would gather and they would move according to where animals moved. Because you need them for life. There was no settled or fixed life. Go to Native America, go to India. The earliest civilizations, before civilizations, were communities which kept moving around. That was insan back then. Okay. Then, when human beings discovered that you can actually grow wheat and plants in one fixed location, they became agricultural society. So now they became civilization where they build structures in fixed places and remain in one place. No longer moving according to the changing of the prey. From there, building civilizations grew because of the existence of agriculture and plants. And we have many Anbiya sent to that type of community. Okay. Then, insan developed ways of bartering goods for one another. And we entered a new stage known as the feudal society. Feudal society is where you'd use something external to measure value, like gold, to measure how much wealth you give to one another. Or like weight of camels, for example. Something you use for trading. So now we are early trade society. This was the feudal society. Okay. Then insan became monarchic. Monarchic is when you would elect a king. You don't elect a king. A king killed you, you don't accept him. A king, or an emperor, or a queen. And they are the authority in society. And around the world you had kings, queens, sultans, tribes with people who were head of the tribe. In Japan you would have these quasi-monarchical societies, all run by one figure. And it was hereditary. When the person dies, their son becomes in charge. And then their son, and their son, and their son. Okay. Then you enter an era which is known as the Renaissance era. In this era, which I'll come to again later, is when kings were replaced with democracy. And slowly, people started running their own society, removing kings and queens and implementing governments. And those governments ran the world. Then we entered an empire society, an imperial society, where you had what? The whole world was dominated by only 4, 5, 6 empires. British Empire, French Empire, Spanish Empire, Japanese Empire, each of them controlling parts of the world. There was one time when they say the sun never set on the British Empire. It controlled at least 1/4 of the whole Earth's territory, era of empires. Then we changed to an era called modernism, which is a very important phrase. In the modernist world, you no longer have empires, you have nation states. United Kingdom, United States of America. Then you have organizations, NATO, the EU, the UN, and the world is run in this way. And once this stage went from modernism, we've now entered a new stage called postmodernism, where the world is changing under our feet. It's no longer about nation states, it's about something else. And it's in that and something else where we are facing so many problems. And that's why the theme of the next 10 days is on this word, postmodernism. I assure you, I know this is a new and different word, but so many of the issues that we are crying about come from not understanding this phase that we are in, inshallah. If I have your permission, I want to go through what postmodernism is to understand why we are in this halo which we are in right now, and how Allah can help us, inshallah. So I have your permission to keep going, inshallah? Postmodernism. Post means after, modernism is the word we are looking at. The era of modernism began in the French Revolution, when, for the first time in the Western world, a king or queen was removed and people were put in charge in the Western world. This idea exists for longer in the Eastern world, but not in the Western world. And as this happened, the first major shift happened. The church was no longer the authority in the world. This is so important. For a long time in the West, the church was the authority. They choose a king, the king is set. They declare something as good, that thing becomes law. They say something is bad, the thing becomes, in their words, haram. It is obligatory to go against that thing. The church was the center of authority. But for the first time in the West, the church was removed and people and democracy became the new power. This shifted the entire focus from the church to insan, to the individual. Specifically, the reason of the person. The idea being, we don't need a king, or a queen, or a church, or religion, or tradition. My reason is enough to govern my own behavior. As the world starts to change, what you have now is the primacy of science. Darwinism, evolution, Big Bang, all these things became fact for everyone. They followed these things. And what you had then was, the insan became the most important thing in the world. Every action was looked like this. Are we harming the individual or are we making the individual free? Freedom of the individual and not harming the individual. The world changed. This has happened for the last 200 to 300 years, where the focus has been the individual, scientific